Hello everyone, welcome to FTE. Feel the English, feel the fragrance of learning. Today we will analyze the short story The Fly, written by Katherine Mansfield, published in 1923. Katherine Mansfield as a short story writer. Katherine Mansfield is widely and greatly considered as one of the best writers of short story of her times. A number of her books, including Miss Brill, Prelude, The Garden Party, The Doll's House, and later works like The Fly, are frequently collected in short fiction anthologies. Early assessments of Mansfield were based largely on the romanticized image presented by Murray in extensively edited volumes of her private papers as well as memoirs of her past, which were published posthumously. Katherine Mansfield was a part of a new dawn in English literature with T.S. Eliot, James Joyce, and Virginia Woolf. She was associated with a brilliant group of writers who made the London of that period the hub of the literary world. Nevertheless, Mansfield was a New Zealand writer. She could not have written as she did had she not moved to England and France. But she could not have done her best employed her memories in her writing from the beginning. People, places, and even the colloquial speech of New Zealand from the fabric of some of her best work. Recent critical studies of Mansfield's short fiction have proved feminist, socio-historical, and psychological interpretations. Critics have also explored stylistic aspects and have investigated several influences in English to be written without a conventional plot. While her predecessors in the genre, writers like Poe, Kipling, and Wells, etc., adhered strictly to structure plots, she concentrated on one moment, a crisis or turning point, rather than a chain of events, for her plot was secondary to mood and characters. Her stories are innovative as they feature simple things, a doll's house or a charwoman. Mansfield's imagery, frequently taken from nature, set the scene with which readers can identify easily. About the short story The Fly. Mansfield's The Fly is a significant and deep short story written in her simple but effective style and with unordered chain of events or plot. The short story represents the struggle of human beings against fate or death, which is a failure in nature, and the struggle of man with man. And human beings are represented as the matters of the gameplay by God or the pet, or we can say death. The cruel nature and destructive spirit of human wars, the violence of the human wars, have also been condemned and ridiculed in a very positive and reformative manner, in a sense of social criticism. In the short story, the healing power of time has played a great role in the story, which is the transition between the mood of sadness and grief and the mood of normality in the behavior, escaping the emotion and grief. The central character, Fly, has played a great role in the process of human life and their struggle with fate. It is an allegory in nature. Major characters in the short fiction. Mr. Woodifield. Mr. Woodifield, an old man who is a heart patient, is not allowed to go outside due to his strokes and weakness in physical body. Within the entire week, only on Tuesday he is allowed to go outside his home, which he used to visit, or he uses to visit his old boss or ex-boss, as he is now a retired person because of his oldness, old age. He is friendly with his boss and is older than him. His boss looks younger and healthier than him. Both of them have lost their sons in the war. It is a remembrance of the World War I that many youths lost their lives blindly without knowing the proper significance and purpose of the war. They kept themselves at the doors of risks. This incident has passed over long 6 years. The incident of the death of their sons. The boss. The boss plays an important role in the short story as the central point of the story is circulated around the actions of the boss and the fly. The boss plays the game of struggle and death with the fly, and finally he becomes unable to concentrate with and forgets about his son's death. Time has healed the entire grief accumulated in the heart of the boss due to the untimely death of his only son in the battlefield. This is the healing power of time. The fly. Katherine Mansfield has given a new life to a common housefly, making it the central character of the short story. The fly struggles to survive, but finally he dies as he is unable to escape his ultimate fate, death. The fly is a symbol of human struggle against fate and his bane before the destiny or fate, or failure. His failure before the destiny or fate. The boss's acts with the fly symbolize the cruelty of a group of humans who encourage wars and play with the innocent lives. Now, the plot of the short story. To remember the plot, we have presented some images in this presentation or in this video, that you can easily remember the plot. In this picture, the office room of the boss has been presented, and the portrait you can see hanging on the wall is the portrait of the boss's son who died in the war 6 years ago. Plot. The short story Fly begins with a retired man, Mr. Woodifield, making his weekly visit to the office where he used to work before suffering a stroke. Every Tuesday afternoon, Woodifield had the habit of returning to visit his former boss. His wife and daughters allowed him just one day to leave the house as he had grown weak after his attack. Woodifield's boss is 5 years older. Uh, older and stout and fit. Actually, in the character Mr. Woodifield, there is a mistake that no, his boss looks younger and healthier than him. Yes, he looks, but actually his boss is older than him, 5 years older than him. Okay. Okay, older. So Woodfield's boss is 5 years older and is stout and fit. He looks stout and fit, though he is older than Mr. Woodfield. But Mr. Woodfield looks like an old man because of his or due to his illness. He is a heart patient and a weak person, physically weak person. A stark contrast to his feeble former employee. Woodfield thinks that it does a man good to see the boss going so strong. He admires the office interiors and the boss explains that he had done it up recently. He points to the new carpet furnitures and the new electric heater, etc. Woodfield observes that the boss does not point at a photograph or portrait hanging on the wall of a grave-looking young man in military uniform, the boss's son. The photograph is not a new one. It has been there in the boss's room for the last 6 years. As the two men enjoy each other's company, Woodfield says that he cannot recall something he wanted to tell him. The boss feels sorry for his former employee, thinking he is obviously at the fag end of his life. He tries to boost Woodfield's morale by offering him some of his excellent whiskey. Imagine uh, on the chair. Imagine the boss is sitting on the chair and on the opposite chair in the office room. Mr. Woodfield is sitting, and his boss is offering a little whiskey to him to make him remember what he wants to tell him. So looking at the picture or observing the picture, you can imagine the story, imagine the plot. Okay, he tries to boost his morale by offering him some his excellent whiskey, even though it is against the doctor's orders. He is not actually allowed to take whiskey or any type of liquor or drink, but his boss forced him only to know what he wanted to tell him. He says the drink will help him to restore his memory. While drinking, Woodfield suddenly remembers what he had wanted to tell the boss. His daughters had been to Belgium recently and visited their brother, Reggie's gravesite. The son of Mr. Woodfield was Reggie. Reggie was the son of Mr. Woodfield's son. Okay, Reggie. His name was Reggie. 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 Remember this spelling. The girls had also noticed the grave of the boss's son there. Both the sides were. Now you have to remember, I have to imagine the graveyard or the cemetery. Imagine this is the gravesite in the Belgium to where Mr. Woodifield's daughter had gone to visit the gravesite of their brother, and as well as they visited the grave of the boss's son. So this is the cemetery. This is the graveyard. The girls had also noticed the grave of the boss's son there. Both the sites were well cared for, and the place was beautiful with broad paths with flowers blooming all over. Hearing the details make the boss upset and visibly distracted. When Woodifield asks him if he has been to the gravesite, the boss replies in the negative. Then Woodifield goes on to talk about how expensive the jam was at the hotel where his daughter stayed. The boss, however, responds without listening and hurries to finish the conversation. He quickly shows Woodifield out. The boss stares blankly for a while. Then he orders Messi, his clerk, to make sure that he remains undisturbed for half an hour. He closes the office door, slumps into his chair, and covers his face with his hands. Woodifield's announcement about the gravesite had jolted him badly. He felt as though the earth opened up and he saw his young son lying in the grave with Woodifield's girls staring down at him. During the last 6 years, he only thought of his boy as lying unsinged and unblemished in his uniform. My soul, he groaned. But no tears come out. In the first few months and years after his son's death, he had only to utter those words and he would be weeping violently. He thought that the passage of time would not bring any change in the intensity of his emotions. Other men might accept their loss, but he would not. How could he, as this was his only son, whom he had worked for? He was the only thing that gave meaning to the boss's life. 6 years earlier, he had received the telegram informing his son's death, and that news left him a broken man. After 6 years of his son's death, the boss is unable to cry and fails to understand what is wrong. He decides to look at the boy's portrait. At that time, he sees a common housefly fall into his inkpot and struggling to free itself. Imagine the fly is in the inkpot. Trying to free itself. The boss's attention is diverted. The common housefly had caught the attention of the boss. Now his mind had changed. He had forgotten about his dead son. He lifts the fly out of the inkpot with his pen and shakes it on a blotting paper. Then he intently Watch it. The creature cleaning itself, drying itself. The boss imagines that the fly must be glad to know what it had narrowly escaped death. He suddenly has an idea and plunges his pen into the inkpot and then drops a blot of ink on the fly. The insect now seems stunned, but eventually it begins to clean itself all over again. This really relieves the boss. He thinks of dropping just another blot of ink on the fly, but unfortunately, after the third drop, the fly does not move. The boss tried to steer it with the pen, but in vain. The fly is already dead. The boss lifts the corpse of the fly and throws it into the dustbin. He experiences fear as well as wretchedness. He orders his clerk to bring some fresh blotting paper and to look sharp about it. Finally, he tries to remember what he had been thinking about prior to the fly's death, but could not recall anything. So this is the plot. This video is too long, so the rest of the topic will be discussed in the next part of the video. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and keep supporting us. Please share with your friend. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. God bless you. And in the second part of the video, the major themes will be discussed and the summary of the short story will be given in a very simple language, simple words. Thank you.